Hello, everyone. My name is Cheryl Hicks, and I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Toilet Board Coalition. We are a business platform supporting business solutions for the sanitation economy. We believe that the sanitation economy has the potential to transform sanitation systems from unaffordable public costs into sustainable and resilient business solutions with significant benefits for business and society. And on our YouTube channel, we are taking the opportunity to showcase many of the business solutions that we've been working with over the last 5 years at the Toilet Board Coalition together with our partners. And we're really pleased today to have David Auerbach with us, who is the co-founder of Sanergy in Kenya, one of the largest sanitation economy businesses with a full value chain approach in the toilet economy, the circular sanitation economy, and the smart sanitation economy. So David, without further ado, tell us about your business.
Great, thanks for having me on the show, as it were, Cheryl. Yeah, so Sanergy is all about how do we clean up fast-growing cities in emerging economies by tackling the sanitation and waste management challenges that they face. And so what we do is that we take a circular economy approach to being able to solve this challenge, especially for low-income informal settlements that are growing extremely quickly. And so we're headquartered here in Nairobi, Kenya, where we have about 2.5 million people living in informal settlements. And across Kenya in general, we have about 10 million people. So what we do is it's really a three-step model of build, collect, convert. So we're building low-cost sanitation facilities, a network of them that are waterless. They are not connected to sewers, but they act just like sewers in the sense that they capture waste and then they ensure that it gets treated, transported and safely treated.
David, these are sorry, if it's okay, I'll interrupt along the way. These are public toilets?
So they're actually in residential compounds. And so basically what we're able to do is build these toilets extremely close to where people are living. People typically live within residential compounds that are, anything from like 5 to 10 families living in one compound. And so 75% of our toilets are there, and about 25% are in open commercial areas too. So what we do is that we lease these toilets to landlords who are then providing them to their tenants as a quality service. So the landlords are paying about $10 per month to be able to have these toilets. And what that does is, their obligation is to keep the toilets clean, safe, and open. And they usually do that through a caretaker, or they'll hire somebody to do that. Tenants are extremely excited for this because it means that they have a toilet where they're living, open 24/7, and they don't have to walk distances to access them, which is typical. What we provide is a waste collection service. So we'll come to the toilets every day or every other day, based on usage, to collect the waste, which is in cartridges that are underneath the toilets. And we collect it in a professional way with proper PPE, proper training, proper safety and health measures in place, which is so important right now, obviously during the COVID-19 crisis. We provide hand washing stations too, which enables us to make sure that people are able to protect themselves against COVID-19. So that waste is then taken out of the community and taken to a processing plant. In addition, we also collect organic waste from around the city. So we also work with hotels and restaurants and agricultural pack houses. And now we're partnering with Nairobi Metropolitan Services, so the government, to be able to collect from the markets there too, which is a huge challenge. All of that waste goes into the second part, which is to our treatment center. So we built a organics recycling plant on the outskirts of Nairobi that processes the waste and ensures that it is free of pathogens. And what we're doing at that processing plant is that we're converting the waste into valuable agricultural inputs. The predominant one that we're doing is black soldier fly larvae, so insect protein. So I love talking about these bugs, but these are, but basically what we have are larvae that eat organic matter. So they have voracious appetites, and they get really and they get big and fat from eating sanitation waste and organic waste. Then after a couple of weeks, we harvest them, pasteurize them, and dry them. And what you're left with is a product, the bug, which is about 40% protein. This is extremely valuable for livestock farms. And so what we do is that we sell that on to feed millers who put this into their mixes, who then sell that on to chicken farms and fish farms. So it's a sustainably produced, protein-rich end product. The second thing that we then do—
and nature-based.
And nature-based, yeah, exactly. And so this actually, it's important, for a couple of reasons. I mean, it competes against little sardines that are called omena, which is being massively overfished in Lake Victoria and other places, or it competes against, soy that's being imported at quite an expensive price. That's also not actually exactly what is needed for fish and chickens diets, or in the volumes at least that are being used at. And then the second thing we're doing is that we're converting this into organic fertilizer. So the larvae leave behind a residue, and that's the input for a fertilizer production process. And so then we compost this, and we end up producing this lovely, nutrient-rich organic fertilizer that's really, really valuable in climates that are either arid or semi-arid, or where there's just been an overdependence on chemical fertilizers, which has over time depleted the soil of its nutrients. And what this organic fertilizer does is it really restores soil structure, so the soil is able to attract water, attract nutrients in it. And we're seeing increase in crop yields as a result of over 30%. We sell this to mom and pop farm shops, and then they resell that on to others. And so we work with about 100, or others being horticultural farmers, so farmers who are growing tomatoes, potatoes, green beans, things like that. This is all, and so the smallholder farmer is seeing increase in crop yields, and as a result of that, increase in incomes too. And then the last thing that we do is that we actually, we can take this, the black soldier fly larvae residue, and we can also briquette it too. And so one final thing that we do is that we convert it into biomass briquettes, and these briquettes are really, really useful for industry, where a lot of factories are dependent on charcoal or charcoal-like substances. And right now in Kenya, we've had a timber ban that's increased the cost of charcoal by 3x. And obviously, we also have much greater restriction on travel due to COVID-19. And so, as a result, we're able to produce this locally and sell to local industry.
So they're using it as fuel for. Can you give us some examples?
To power a boiler, for example. So a lot of industry still relies on that type of production. And so that would be exactly what it would go into, sort of into the furnace to heat that up. So
fantastic. And so you've talked about your business is addressing an unmet need of providing sanitation to people that haven't had access to sanitation, and all of the heightened awareness that we have now around hygiene, so important. You are also converting that into a agricultural product that is higher value and addressing deficiencies in the soil being faced by agriculture, and you're providing a source of renewable energy as well.
And ultimately it's a zero waste solution too. So it's really, really attractive for cities, who are facing this massive challenge around landfill, which is to say they don't have space for it. And in most developing cities, according to the World Bank, about 60% of the waste is organic. So that's just sitting there, being ready to be able to put to good use for other things, and instead goes to landfill, of which there's massive spatial constraints, and it's very, very expensive to maintain.
Thank you, David. And can you talk about your growth trajectory? So you're one of
Yeah.
the fastest growing businesses in this space, and with sort of many product and service offerings. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, sure. So right now, we serve about 150,000 people with safe sanitation services within Nairobi. We collect last year we collected 12,000 tons of waste total that would have otherwise polluted the environment or caused sanitation-related disease. And we're converting that into, these agricultural inputs. We are and successfully selling that on. We see there, we sell all the fertilizer we produce. We see extremely happy customers on that front. And then the animal feed, it's an interesting constraint that we have, which is that we haven't been able to produce enough. We have lots of LOIs and interest from much larger producers, but they need to be able to buy in significant volumes. So what we have done is that we've actually invested in building a much larger plant that is going to open in September of 2020. And so that plant is going to have the capacity to produce 70,000 tons of waste a year, or to manage 70,000 tons of waste a year. So going up from 12,000 tons would be quite significant. Wow. And that's going to enable us to produce about 3,600 tons of animal feed and about 6,000 tons of fertilizer or briquettes too. So it's ramping up quite significantly. We've also built a larger hatchery, so effectively a processing plant in a second city on the coast of Kenya, which is great to see. And so now basically we're in a really rapid growth stage, and and this and it's super exciting because with COVID-19, there's never the purpose of our work has never been clearer too. We know that being able to get people with safe sanitation services, ensure that waste is being safely removed from communities is so critical. And so as a result, what we're seeing is a lot more partnership from government coming into play, which is great to see. Incredibly motivated team. We have 300 employees, and they're really rising to the challenge. And then also just like tremendous excitement from the investment community too. And we're saying, okay, this what are we going to double down on at this time? And what are we also going to do? Looking a little bit down the road of like, how do we build more resilient cities? And being able to see that now is really important. I mean, it's so sad that it's during a crisis that attention is coming to light, but like that is the silver lining.
And can you talk a little bit about any sort of pivots or additional things that you've had to do in light of COVID, for your workers or for your customers?
Yeah, I mean, so two things. So a couple of things. So I mean, first of all, like, staff safety has been the most important thing, for us. There's no, we morally you can't run. I don't think you can run a company where you're putting your people more at risk. And so we've had to ramp up significantly on our health and safety measures, and that ranges from all of the WHO, CDC, and Kenya Ministry of Health guidelines around around what workplaces need to be. That costs more, of course, but it's not a real. It's
a new requirement.
It's a requirement, but it's also a responsibility, and that's something that we're just very willing and able to be able to do. So that involves temperature checks. That involves checking in on staff daily, checking in on people who are who because of their immune systems perhaps are at higher risk, not taking frontline positions and things like that. Also like working incredibly hard for job preservation. In Kenya, we've lost 1 million jobs since the beginning of COVID-19. And that's hugely significant. And so us as a company thinking through like, okay, there's a world where it always makes sense to be super austere in what you're doing, but we've really gone the extra mile to make sure that we're keeping our staff paid and on salary. And then for the communities that we're serving, yeah, I mean, so we hadn't been the ones providing the soap and sanitizer previously. The relationship that we had with the operators of the toilets was that they were the ones to provide that. But at a time when 86%, I think it is, of Kenyan people living in Kenya's informal settlements are reporting reduced incomes, and you're seeing increase in prices of foods and things like that. We just like, well, what can we do to be able to provide for this? And so we actually joined 2 private sector alliances, one called Safe Hands Kenya, one called National Business Compact. And through them, they've been able to aggregate donations of significant donations of soap, sanitizer, masks, and things like that. And we have this really effective distribution network. And so they're able to give to us. And then we're able to provide it to our tenants, to our customers via our operators. And that's been really, really well received. And it's pretty easy for us because we've built this complex, this complex network. And and it's not something that we want to do forever, because when you give things for free, it does disrupt the local economy, of which there's so many little, they're called dukas, little shops that selling those types of soaps. That's the better distribution path over time. But in the short term, when people don't have the money, this has been a really important way to serve the needs of our community.
Fantastic, and I think it's just really helpful examples for other small businesses, perhaps, that are are thinking about best practice and how to protect their employees, how to protect their customers, as you're saying. So thank you for sharing what Sanergy's been doing, and that kind of leads me to the future outlook, and maybe just to highlight something about you personally, David. I mean, you have been a supporter also of the growth of this new industry, sanitation economy industries. You've been an active member of the Toilet Board Coalition. You've been, I think, a co-founder and active member of the Container-Based Sanitation Alliance, and I'm sure many others. We need more of this leadership going forward, as you say, to really meet the demand. How do you see the future outlook for the industry, perhaps with some of this new movement and awareness that you mentioned from COVID-19? And, as a leader in this space, what would you encourage others to do?
Yeah. Well, I think that, those are very kind of things, kind things for you to say, Cheryl. I don't always feel credible to talk about what others should do. But I think that, look, I think that the sanitation economy, I think it is big business eventually, and I think that's really important. And I think what it really ties well into is the circular economy. And even before COVID-19, there has been this rise in the circular economy as a brand, as something that is important. And you're seeing lots of new investment funds coming towards that, to that. And I think that what the sanitation, I think that sanitation economy can really fold into that. And also be a very clear sort of sector focus within the circular economy. And I think that it's really important because that's it's really appealing in that way, to be part of the circular economy. It's a very attractive idea in a way that frankly, sanitation it's always been hard to get people to want to focus on that. We have all sorts of social taboos around it and things like this. And so I think that there's this great moment coming, where we're living through, where this is going, where there's going to be tremendous opportunity for innovators who are able to work out how to reuse waste. And I think that, and I think that like for those who want to get involved, I mean, like, I think that, I often think about the ideas of Clayton Christensen's disruptive innovation, right? Like companies like Sanergy and those in the sanitation economy are generally like looking where no one else is looking right now. And in that, there's like this like very awesome, there's a very clear opportunity. And I think that, if people go in with that mindset, then we have more people in this space. I think that's going to have a nice combustive element to it. And I think that, but of course, entrepreneurship is the hardest journey. There's so many other ways to succeed. And so, I always want to remind people that, when they're coming into this, it's a 10-year journey. It's not, it's not a 2-year journey, especially when you're solving for social
rewards.
Challenges. Yeah. Pardon?
With big rewards.
Yeah, with big rewards, but yes, but it is something that just takes time. So.
Well, thank you, David, for your leadership, for your innovation, and showing us that journey does lead to exciting opportunities to solve global challenges in many areas. Sanitation, agriculture, food, and more. So thank you, and we will be sharing your story on our YouTube channel, and we wish you and your business all the best in the future, and looking forward to continuing to work with you. Namaste.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Namaste. Take care.